Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to be looking at a special selection, which is where you guys tell me exactly what you want me to check out, and I look into it. Today's special selection comes at us from Jacob Melcars. It says Cloudkicker, push it way up. We're going to be checking that one out. This is part of a full album video, so I'm going to try to stop it at the proper time. Looks like we have about a 7-minute song. Let's see, 17:45 to 24. So, yep, 7-minute song, give or take. And yeah, let's dig into this. This is Cloudkicker. Push it way up. Dang, this time signature. My gut's telling me 9/8, but it's honestly, it could be all over the place, honestly. I'm just going to dig into the groove and jam with it. I love that little hiccup there. It sounds like it's going to go for 4/4 and then just extends it just a hair. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, that slow metamorphosis in the tone. Just kind of shifting between highs and lows and what's presented. Oh, that tension. Yeah, I think it is 9/8. I do. Dude, that one continuous note hanging over all of this, constantly shifting in tone and texture, even at times. Note, the pitch itself is being altered. Just all this rising tension. Yep, 9/8. Or something close to 9/8. A lot of that tension has kind of backed off and really brought something a bit more relaxing going on. Interesting. Oh, nice. We got a 7 polymeter against that 9 now. If you listen to the cymbal, you get 7 of those per pattern. But I'm still counting 9 when I listen to the guitar bit, so... It's interesting how that ambient tone gave way for that finale, I think. To really widen out and drive home that guitar riff. All right, interesting stuff. The odd thing is that we just got done listening to another song that took a single idea and expanded it to an entire song. And it's really interesting both of these are hitting at the same day. So this is a very interesting to me exploration or experimentation of coming up with a single complex riff. Or maybe not necessarily the riff itself. It could have been the time signature first, the odd time signature, and then put a riff in it. Could have been the other way around. I mentioned this the other week. Sometimes you just end up noodling around. You play a rhythm that's really jiving with you, and when you go to transpose it to sheet music or tablature, it just... you can't figure out the time signature it's supposed to be in. And you're like, why does this feel so natural to me when it's such an odd, kind of janky rhythm? And sometimes music, time signatures, rhythms they just feel right, even though they're not typically natural. Well, not natural. They're not typically standard, and they don't have a natural feeling to them. Like this one has a very almost disjointed hiccuping to it. But yeah, so it sounds like they came up with this single idea. And then they said, what can we do with this? Where can we take it? And maybe from the start, they decided they were going to use a single foundational idea and build everything else around it and slowly take it into new directions. Maybe they just came up with a lot of ideas. And they said, well, let's do them all. We don't need the song to, follow any sort of typical structure. We're just going to stay in this one idea and slowly change the elements above it. Either way, however they came about writing this song, I think it's really fascinating look at how you can create a singular idea and expand it in so many different ways. Even though there really is only 3 key moments to the song, we have the opening section, the ambient soundscape middle section, and then that 30-second closer where they went full on width and focus on the guitar line to finish out the song before fading that out. So I need to go back sometime and listen to that beginning again and see if it fits in within that 9 against 7 feel that I felt in the middle section. I also want to see how closely the two sections resemble each other. They were both fairly chaotic, especially for a first listen. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of oddities going on as far as time signature, rhythmic elements, accentuation. It's very difficult, at least for me, to find my grounding on a first listen. That middle section lasted long enough. I'd say it was the meat of the song. The intro was shorter than it. The outro was shorter. That middle section is really the core aspect. And I had plenty of time to get my bearings there. But I did not quite get my bearings at the beginning. And I don't know if they were actually 100% identical or just extremely similar in style. However, that middle section is slick. It is fascinating. There is just enough oddity to make it feel progressive in a sense, or intellectual, or however you want to approach this idea of writing, whatever descriptive word, adjective you'd like to give to a song that actively seems to go out of its way to be jammed with and to bob your head along with, or to move along with, to understand. But at the same time, they find ways to inject groove into it, especially there at the end when they put in that 7/4 cymbal. The cymbal's loud enough to get your attention. It's a new element, so you're gonna get you're gonna be drawn to it anyways. But if you really jam with that, you can find a nice groove, a nice rhythm to bob your head to move and groove to. And I think it's interesting that, like I said, they moved between these two elements of just pure chaos, where I was having a real hard time finding a groove to it all. I could feel the downbeat. The downbeat just felt like it was always random. I could never anticipate it, and it made it very difficult to go about counting. And then they inject this that you're like, oh yeah, all right, I'm feeling this now. I gotcha. And they just kind of like move between these two. But if you want to ignore the rhythm completely and just fall into the the slow burn, slowly changing atmospheric aspect to the beginning, you can do that too. The song really envelops a lot of ideas and allows people to approach it in any way they would like. Some people might end up moving through all of these. I know I did. Some people might end up just really latching onto one that they really enjoy. Maybe they love the complexity of it. Maybe they love the groove near the end. Maybe they just love to, get immersed by that atmosphere and allow it to, overcome them and just, sit and dwell in that slowly changing feeling, the dread, the tension, the release, that whole story that single held out note tells. And all of that is a valid way to listen to it because they're all highly present. None of it you really have to dig for. It's all on the surface, and I love that. It's such an interesting way to go about writing this song. It reminds me of other art forms, like usually visual art forms tend to be easier for people to do this to, but you have your surface read and then your deeper in-depth read, and different people are going to approach and engage with the art in different ways, what's more natural to them. Music, I feel, tends to always be more surface level. There's going to be people who dig into music more deeper, but I feel I don't know if it's music per se or just the fact that music literacy is not, I don't even know if I want to say it's less taught, because I want to even say that, movie or visual literacy is really taught. If I went to a person on the street and said, "Hey, what do you think of the Dutch angles in, a film?" They'd be like, "What's a Dutch angle?" I'm like, we don't really teach music literacy to average people either. But I think that there is something about the visual language that people are just more acclimated to, maybe. I don't know. But I get the feeling that music just tends to have more surface reads across the board from people who listen to and engage with music. So I think it's really awesome that they put all of this on the surface. You can engage with any of it, whatever just feels the most natural to you for a first listen. Maybe on your third listen, you're like, hey, I never really noticed that groovy part there before. That's pretty awesome. It's still on. You don't really have to go digging for it. You just might have to, reject what you usually listen to. And like I said, I think that's fascinating. It's a fantastic way to go about writing, and it provides a little bit of simplicity, maybe more of a guide to engaging the song on different levels. And that's just, I love that. I do, because I hope that people might listen to this and, they hear one thing. And then maybe on their second or third listen, they hear another thing. And then, maybe eventually they really start to dig that atmospheric synth work, or whatever that instrument was doing the atmospheric soundscape stuff. And they're like, wow, that's awesome. I never really fell into that before, but I just let it envelop me. And I had a completely different journey this time. And it causes them to reevaluate their relationship with music, and like, I wonder if any other songs I could listen to multiple times and find different ways to engage with it. And hopefully it sparks some sort of maybe not necessarily analytical or theoretical engagement, a need to engage with music that way, but just going back to music and trying to find new ways to listen to it, and listening for new things. I think that would be the spark of a journey into musical curiosity that I think a lot of people would benefit from. I think that's pretty cool. Um, let's see, about the music. I think I've really touched on everything vaguely. There's not really a lot going on. The most complex thing is the time signature. Like I said, I'm not even 100% certain. I could count 9, and it lined up with some of the notes. So I feel like 9/8 is plausible, though I feel like I was missing a very small fraction. So instead of 9/8, it might be something like 17/16 or 19/16, just like a 16th of a note extra or less. I feel like it wasn't lining up perfectly. It's very close, but not perfectly. So we might have a very odd time signature like that. But then, of course, the symbols come in with that 7 pulse. And I don't know if that's 7/4, 7/8. I'm going to go with 4 because of the distance between the notes. But it is a 7 pulse that it comes in at, and it fits very perfectly with the pattern. So, yeah, the time signature, as I've mentioned before, time signature is not absolute. It can be written in many different ways. It changes nothing about how the song sounds. It just changes how it looks on the paper. It's usually for the composer to give notes about how the song's supposed to feel or sound like, as far as rhythmic elements go. So this song could have been written in any number of time signatures, but I do think that, at least for me, I'm feeling this 9 against 7 idea, or something roughly approximate to 9 against 7, and I think that's awesome. It's really cool stuff. And like I said, the other thing is that even though it has these complex time signatures and polymeter, there's still some really nice groove sections to it. It's really difficult to find the groove without an instrument really laying it down, because I feel like they're really fighting against that. But I do like how they do inject groove into that, even though it sounds and feels chaotic. They show you there's still a way to groove along with it, to jam with the song. The opening section, like I said, I need to go back and check out again and really focus in on that, because I gave up after a couple of bars when I just wasn't getting it, and I figured I needed to switch my mind over to the music, because, eventually I would need to talk about that. I can't ignore that completely for the time signature, and I didn't know how long the section was going to last. But it's either doing the same thing as the middle, which is going to be my guess, since the outro replicated the middle section. I think the whole song is built upon this core idea of that 9/8/7/4 idea. But at the same time, it also felt more chaotic than the middle section, and I'm wondering if maybe they weren't using multiple time signatures and bouncing around between them. Because I just could not find even a repetition. I had a very hard time being able to anticipate, beat one, the beginning of a pattern. It felt like it was always changing. I would hear a rhythmic idea, and I'm like, okay, we got one more beat, and we're bringing it back. And then it was actually 2 beats later. It had like this hiccup, this doubling up. It repeated itself once more than I thought it was going to. So I do think that there's some time signature wizardry going on there, putting in multiple time signatures and playing around with how long each pattern is. Something like maybe starting with that 9/8, but the second time you play it, it's 10/8, and the next time you play it, it's 8/8, and then you come back to the 9/8 or something like that. Just giving it this constant feel of transformation, never really knowing where that downbeat's going to be. It could be earlier than you expect, could be later, and that's the sort of the surprise that I had, the difficulty I had, was that every time I felt like I finally figured it out, it was a little earlier, a little later than I thought I had it. So, yeah, I got to go back and figure that one out. Now, the other thing I want to say is interesting about this song. You guys know I'm not real big on slow burns. And this whole song is 7 minutes of practically the same idea. Not really moving anywhere, not really layering upon it. It's not even a slow burn. It is a sitting in a single situation. There's not layering on it. There's no dynamic choices being added. It's just a single idea that takes up a majority of the track, but I was still entertained by it on the sheer fact of its complexity. There is always something new for me to hear and understand. The time signature is a big puzzle for me that I was constantly trying to solve, in a sense, I suppose. And I absolutely love that. I don't know how well it would work on subsequent listens after I figure out the time signature and start to have a feel for the groove of the song, if it's still going to have that same effect on me, because the puzzle aspect of it will be gone, and I will have just the music, which is the same thing over and over for 7 minutes. But maybe I'm just really in the mood for a jam, and this is a jam that fits, and I still enjoy it. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how this would work on subsequent listens, but for a first time listen, for a reaction, this was really great because I've mentioned before, there's prog songs that I find difficult to talk about because the time signatures are all over the place. Key signatures are all over the place. They're constantly moving and changing things. And every time that I try to figure out what's going on, if I figure out, if I have enough time to even figure it out, it's already gone and passed. We're moving on to the next section. And then with slow burns, they tend to introduce things so slowly that I've already figured it out and I'm just waiting for the next section to kick in. I'm like, oh man, we got another, 8 bars of this before the next instrument comes in and I see what gets added. I think this is a perfect sort of combination between those of what I'm going to coin as the puzzle box song, where there's plenty of time to figure out what's going on before the song moves, and also there's plenty complexity to, in a sense, entertain my mind, keep it active during the sections where there is no movement. And I think it just walks a perfect line for me. That's not the same for anybody. Some people could be faster or slower at figuring out temporal adjustments, or figuring out key changes or oddities and harmony and stuff like that. Everybody's going to have a completely different speed. But for me, I think this was really perfect as far as keeping every section around long enough for me to explore it, while also never, really becoming bored of a section because we haven't progressed yet. So yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if this is what they do. Maybe this isn't an experiment at a single idea. Maybe this entire album is single ideas that have been extrapolated and built upon in different ways. Or maybe this is an outlier and they really, they typically write stuff with words and, progression over a song structure. And this is sort of an experimental instrumental idea on the album. I don't know, but I'm interested in it. I would not mind checking out more Cloudkicker because I think they have a really great sense for rhythmic ideas. And I'd like to see what else they do with that. Maybe with a song that's less sparse, maybe a little bit more meat on it. And see how they can still work in rhythmic elements to a more traditional song structure. I don't know. If they don't do that, that's fine. As I've said before, nobody needs to make music for my tastes. I'm just saying things that I think would be interesting. I think they have some really cool ideas, and I would like to see them combined with things that I typically enjoy. I think that's how most people would think. I like this element. Let's mix it with something something else I really like. Peanut butter and jelly over here. Peanut butter and chocolate. So yeah, really cool stuff. Those are my thoughts, though, on Cloudkicker's. I was going to say Beacons, because that's what the video is called. That's the album, though. What is this song? Cloudkicker's Push It Way Up. This is for you guys. Come in, hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this. If you enjoyed it or not, anything that you could add, especially if you have context for the time signature. I mentioned that the time signature could really be anything, and the 7 and 9 that I mentioned are really only how I feel it. It may not necessarily be how the original writer or composer felt it. It might not be how they hear it or feel it in their mind. So I am kind of interested in that, especially that first section. Is it jumping around so much? Or was I just having a real hard time nailing down a repetition? When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. There's a link in there for Linktree. Really useful menu with buttons and icons that help you find links adjacent to the channel, such as Twitter, Patreon, Discord, or if you'd like to submit your own special selection. Above that, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. It's all greatly appreciated. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. And as is the norm now, we'll have 2 videos. One of them will be tomorrow's post-punk song. The other one will be another Bryan's choice. We'll probably do some more special selections. I don't know how many of those I'll do this week, but I do think we should get through that list a little. I think we're up to like 30 suggestions, 30 selections in that list. So yeah, I can take this time to kind of get through that a little quicker. We'll probably do 3 or 4 this week, maybe. And then, some other stuff. Just bonus videos every day is how you can think about it. We used to do a bonus video on Friday. Now you can think of us doing bonus videos every day. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.